Welcome.
Yeah, probably will get down to the bottom like. I mean, that's really.
So that we can. I come up with how people have places to like walk. Leaving the chair.
They give us a. Yeah. That for a little bit.
And that's what the media. If you want. And then maybe we can bring another table over there. We'll get an easy now. I'm gonna be getting up and. Maybe back there. There's plenty of space.
That should be on the evening.
But.
Well, they did like a year's campaign.
Invite right there.
Right there.
Welcome, welcome. So the recording is gonna record you as like the presentation. So, I think I have to move that back a little bit. Can you give me the paper, just pushing it back a little bit?
You gotta take a picture with the kid.
I'm gonna play, like,
Get the children of the future. Yes, sir.
and that's okay, you take a picture with Matt at the meeting? Yeah.
The life of minors. Left in the back.
Okay, so whenever you're ready, let me. So I'm gonna have. But let me tell you. All right, everybody, so we're gonna get started in about 30 seconds, so please go ahead and take a seat, get comfortable. And any purchases, if you could please wait till the end of the night, because we're about to start, that would be amazing. Thank you so much, appreciate it. All right. So welcome everybody to the Aztlan to Palestine teach-in. Brought in by the great Matt Cedillo here. So Matt Cedillo and I have been friends for about, I don't know, almost 15 years now. And he brought this to my attention. He was like, you need to meet Ernesto and like bring him to the spot so he can do like this in-depth teaching about Aztlan and Palestine. So I thought it would be a great idea, a great addition to the programming that we already have. And so it's my honor to, to have Ernesto here and to have Matt Cedillo present him. So without much further ado, I'm gonna let Matt introduce Ernesto.
All right. Good for being with you. You got for Arte. It's a great honor of mine to present Ernesto Ayala. Over the last, I'd say, year and a half, I've had the great honor. It's one of the great honors of my life to host a radio show on KPFK alongside this strong brother, Radio La Raza, sometimes La Raza Radio, sometimes Radio Jaguar. They're always changing our name, always changing our time slot. We're at 4 p.m. On Fridays now. So it's a great honor to have known Ernesto for about as long as I've known Viva. I've known Ernesto for about 10, 15 years now, somewhere between there. And in the time that I've known him, I've seen him organize so much in his beloved Tequila. I've seen him become. His library is a national treasure to the Chicano people. It's a personal library. It's incredible. His backyard is a graph yard, and it throws giant cultural festivals there, giant punk shows, graffiti shows. I mean, he's a real man of the people. I mean, I don't think I've known anyone quite as, quite lived it, just the way he speaks it, the way, I would say about Ernesto. So, he's the vice chair of, La Raza Unida. He was once the chair of La Raza Unida. And, alongside me and, Ernesto Bustamante was the show. And, this guy is, and he's one of the great, like, Chicano intellectuals who've been born of my generation. I mean, there's so many great, classic intellectuals that we know from the past, like Jorge Gonzalez, like Carlos Montes here, like so many from that generation. And so a working class, organic, and so on and so forth, fighter. And Ernesto really, he's really part of that tradition. And he's sadly, too few of us have taken up that banner. And none have taken up as heartily as Ernesto Ayala. So without any further ado, Ernesto.
And thank you, compañera, for having us. Thank you. I'm honored to do this presentation, but I think there's a lot of information here that hopefully gives you a different perspective or enriches your perspective of what the Chicano people are and our relation to the Palestinian people and their struggle. I think it's something that's important. In my opinion, with everything that's going on in Palestine, I think it should remind us a lot about the Chicano people who are a part of the native people of this land and the continent. And what our question is in this country, what our question is in today's world. It's important because both struggles are very much similar and have a long history of solidarity. So, without further ado, I will begin. Can we do the next? Okay. So as you can see here, I made this just like a postcard kind of. It's not a line right there. But from Aztlan to Palestine, I thought it was a pretty good juxtaposition there. You have the famous Jorge Gonzalez walking in front of a mural, ¿verdad? In the barrio. It has a political slogan on it. And then this person, I don't know who this person is, a Palestinian, obviously, with doing the same thing in their Palestine, in their neighborhood, and with also a political slogan on the mural. We love our land, we will fight. And the other one, to kill is bad enough, but to kill your own gente is to kill la raza. And that word la raza has a deep meaning to the Chicano people. It has a deep meaning to the people, to the average person. You say that phrase, and it means something that hits home because, there's a lot of misconceptions, and we're going to tackle some of those things tonight. That you hear online, that you hear in academia. What we're trying to do here is we're not trying to impress each other. We're trying to understand our reality and how can we go and organize our people. Our people, everyone that you see out there, how do we organize amongst them? How do we build power amongst these people that are working class, that are colonized, that are indigenous, they're Chicanos, they're Mexicanos, they're Centroamericanos, they're First Nations, they're a mix of all that, because I have that in my family, but they're Chicanos, regardless. How do we organize the average person? So hopefully this helps answer some of that, at least in relation to la raza, and I say that proudly, to la raza. Next slide, please. La música tenemos. Okay, so I want to again acknowledge, ¿verdad? The barrio that we're in, ¿verdad? I think that's important. To acknowledge the history of this place, the bookstore, ¿verdad? La compañera Viva, who's done a lot to make this space. We need more spaces like this. We need a lot more spaces like this. We need these spaces to even succeed even more than we've seen them, without because as a people, as workers, we need spaces where we could congregate, we could debate ideas, we could sharpen ourselves, ¿verdad? I don't claim to know everything. I don't claim to have the most correct answers, but I think I have something to share. So I bring it here to you. If you have something, you say, well, I don't agree with that. No, we could talk about it. We could sharpen ourselves, each other. That's what it's all about. That's dialectics. So yes, I want to acknowledge it. I want to acknowledge the barrio. I want to acknowledge, and I will say, this part of Aztlan, which is originally was called, or the people call it Yana, ¿verdad? Tobangar, I guess, depending which part of it you're in. There's no reason you can't say both words. So want to remember that. I know the brother, you said this is your neighborhood, ¿verdad?
Well, yeah.
Well, where you grew up and stuff, ¿verdad? So thank you, ¿verdad? Because this is your neighborhood. ¿verdad? And thank everybody here, ¿verdad? For giving us the time, giving me the time, basically. Next slide, por favor.
Before we go to the next slide, do you think you stand on that side because the camera only has your back right now?
Yes.
I like that flyer.
Yeah.
Should we go back to the?
So, the Palestine Liberation Organization, we're gonna talk about two organizations, the PLO and La Raza Unida Party, and then you'll see why we're gonna talk about them. The Palestine Liberation Organization, and I'm not an expert on it, but I know a little bit about them. They were founded June 2nd, 1964. The PLO is a frente type of organization. Frente means like a coalition, I guess. A front, which it means it is composed of several organizations with similar ideological goals. And basically, the ideology of the PLO is composed of several organizations unified under the goal of the liberation of Palestine. In other words, they want national liberation. They're nationalists to different degrees. Some of them are Marxist-Leninists, but they're revolutionary nationalists. They understand that Palestine is their nation. Their people are Palestinians. They are part of the Arab people, and they will fight to the end to make that a reality, to make Palestine independent. Next slide. Oh, I like that. This is from their charter, their founding document of the PLO, the Palestinian National Charter. Article 1. Palestine is the homeland of the Arab Palestinian people. It is an indivisible part of the Arab homeland. And the Palestinian people are an integral part of the Arab nation. So they say, this is who we are. As a part of this bigger group of people, this is who we are. So I chose some of these because I want us as Chicanos, or people here that in solidarity also with Chicanos, or trying to understand what I'm trying to get to. We reflect on some of these, some of the stuff that they come to understand. Like what do they mean by being Palestinian, but also being part of something much bigger? So that's their Article 1. Article 2. Palestine, with the boundaries it had during the British Mandate, is an indivisible territorial unit. And then the British Mandate was a declaration which the League of Nations gave administrative control of the land of Palestine and Transjordan to Britain. So yes, that is colonial. Yes, that was carved out by these imperialist colonial powers. Out of that, developed a nation, a new people. Obviously, yes, a part of that land has been called Palestine for a very long time, but it wasn't like literally a nation state or anything like that. It was, just the land of Palestine. But yes, I mean, again, reflect on this. So they carved it out. The Europeans carved it out. They said, oh, this is going to be the land of Palestine, whatever, whatever. The PLO is saying, yes, you carved it out, but out of that, we evolved as a legitimate people. Keep that in mind. Some of the stuff you hear about Chicanos. Palestinian National Charter founding document, Article 8, the phase in their history through which the Palestinian people are now living is that of national struggle for the liberation of Palestine. Then I underline this because this is very important. Again, reflecting on Chicanos. Thus, the conflicts among the Palestinian national forces are secondary and should be ended for the sake of the basic conflict that exists between the forces of Zionism and of imperialism on one hand, and the Palestinian Arab people on the other. So that is they're saying this is the important, this is a cause, this is the main root of our problem is Zionism and imperialism. Let's put aside our issues we might have with each other, might be legitimate. You might be right about certain things, but let's try to get the first problem out of the way, the root of the problem out of the way first. So yeah, amongst each other, yeah. So again, as we're talking about Chicanos, and even if from another community and other people, reflect on that, ¿verdad? What does that mean? Because in the United States, there's like bickering over all sorts of stuff. You go online and people are like, "Oh my God, man, please stop it already! Someone take that guy's internet connection." You know what I mean? On this basis, the Palestinian masses, regardless of whether they are residing in the national homeland or in their diaspora, constitute both their organizations and individuals one national front working for the retrieval of Palestine and its liberation through armed struggle. So that's the priority. Liberate Palestine, liberate our land, liberate our people. Next. I'm sorry about my back. And that there is Yasser Arafat. He's yes, what?
Oh, sorry. You're positive. Sorry.
He was the founder of the PLO. He actually had also roots in Egypt, but he was Palestinian. And this is a quote from him. I can say that we have defeated the enemy plan that staked all on the dissolution of the Palestinian identity. And the Palestinian people, in fact, the Palestinian identity has been reasserted in its most distinct and definite form. In our Palestinian era, people are not only conscious of their national identity, but also embody it in their daily activities, although more than half of them have been forcibly deprived of the right to live in their land, while the remainder have been deprived of the possibility of expressing their identity. Yasser Arafat, he passed away in 2004. Again, he is saying, and I'll read it again because I think that, it's important as Chicanos to reflect on this. I can say that we have defeated the enemy plan that staked all on the dissolution of the Palestinian identity and the Palestinian people. So he's saying their identity in the reality that they live as a colonized people, their identity is a weapon that unites them, that brings them together. Because again, they are living under colonialism. Colonialism banks on the fact that they attempt to divide the colonized. Oh, you're from that tribe. Oh, you're from this tribe. Oh, you're from this group. Oh, you're mixed. Oh, you're not full-blooded. Oh, you're this and that. Oh, because that was happening there at the beginning. The part that we know as Palestine was being argued, is it part of Syria? Is it a little part of Lebanon? What is this place? And then now the Zionists are claiming it. What is this? They were debating back and forth. There's Jews that are Palestinian. Are they? Are they not?
Yeah.
They are saying we are all Palestinian, and that is our identity. That's what brings us together. That's what unites us as a people in the face of a violent invasion by Zionists, of these colonizers, of these imperialists. That keeps us solid, and you will see that. You will see that with the Palestinians. What's that? Probably everyone's here has seen that picture of a little child with a rock in his hand in front of a tank. That little boy knows from the day he was born, the day that he passes away, that he is Palestinian no matter what. Elderly people, men, women, young men, young women, straight, queer, etc. If they're Palestinian, they know they are Palestinian, and nothing can take that away from them. Not tanks, not missiles, not sanctions, not any of that. And they proudly will resist to the very end because they know who they are. A colonizer cannot erase them, and so they have won already. That's what he said there. That's what he was trying to say. So Arafat. Now, coming back home over here, Partido Nacional de la Raza Unida. Some of you all may be familiar with that organization. In 1969, at the Chicano Youth Liberation Conference, Rodolfo Corky Gonzalez, leader of the Crusade for Justice in Colorado, calls for the creation of an independent Chicano political party and the need for developing Chicano nationalism as an ideological tool for liberation. Although the idea already existed, it is here that Corky and the Crusade call for Aztlan as our homeland. And then on the bottom, the idea that Chicanos originated from Aztlan already existed prior to the Chicano Youth Liberation Conference, but it was first put into text by Jack Forbes, Powhatan Bernabe, in the Mexican Heritage of Aztlan. That's a paper he wrote in 1962. Later on, that piece was added to this book, Aztecas del Norte. If you want to know about Chicanos, you got to read that book. That book again was written by the late Jack Forbes, who was a native elder, Powhatan Lenape descent. Looks like. Cooler than I thought. Founded in 1970 after school walkouts in Cristal City, Texas, because they weren't letting, it was like something that just burst open. They weren't letting the Chicanitas join the cheerleading squad. So all the Chicanos said, oh, we're gonna walk out then, man, forget this. And out of that grew, the momentum to actually build La Raza Unida party. La Raza Unida sweeps elections in various towns in Texas, challenging the dominant white power structure in place since 1848. So that's their original logo, or one of the original logos, which is the Familia, Partido de la Raza Unida. Part on the left is, always on the left, is the modern day logo with the Partido, with the Jaguar warrior. Could be man or woman, could be anybody, but it's a Jaguar warrior. And this is, Jose Angel Gutierrez when he was young. Next slide. Ooh, look at that. In 1972, La Raza Unida holds national convention, drawing in 3,000 Chicanos. Yeah. You hear that? Ah, yeah.
I remember this, so they took that.
Oh, I was like, I was behind. He's the guy right here. Has the same hat still. Next slide, please. 1974, since the beginning, mujeres participation was central to the Partido, La Raza Unida. Chicanas took several key positions with 36% of county chairs. By 1972, Las Mujeres por la Raza Unida and La Federación de Mujeres de la Raza Unida were formed at statewide, then there was statewide conference held in 1974 in Texas as well. That's Doreen Garcia, I know her. I didn't know that was her when I met her, but that's her. And that's like a classic photo. From that magazine was one of like the main Chicano news sources back then, La Raza magazine, and it was basically part of La Raza Unida. News and political thought of the Chicano struggle. But yeah, that's her and her son. So some of this I'm saying because I want to give a background on what is La Raza Unida, what is some of that history, that even if you take Chicano studies, even if you have a master's or a doctorate in Chicano studies, sometimes they don't even know this. Sadly. Next slide, please. More images of compañeras in the partido, la conferencia de mujeres por la raza, Irma Mireles. And then these sisters here, they're at the convention as well. One of the things I think to clarify about this is sometimes online you hear, how some women walked out of a conference. That was at this conference. But these compañeras did not walk out because they said, oh, we're not going to be a part of this. They said, we are a part of this. We're talking about La Raza, Chicanos, Aztlan, and all this. How are you going to push aside La Mujer? So they did that as members of La Raza Unida. And they told the hombres, you have to look at us as equals, as compañeras in the struggle, in the revolution. We are the same as you. So it's not like you hear on social media, they just walked out and then that was it. No, they walked out in a protesta and they said, you're going to listen to us because this is our partido. This is our movimiento. We're not a separate people because of our gender or anything else. There is separate things that we got to talk about, but we are the same people. Again, what is the main contradiction, that like the Palestinians, I give the example of the Palestinians, is that they are a colonized people and Zionism is their enemy. Same with La Raza. We are a colonized people. US imperialism, colonialism is our enemy. So that's what the compañeras did. And they proudly kept organizing in the partido. So that's important information to take home. Next slide. Since the beginning, or in the beginning, I should say, there was no ideological definition of who or what La Raza Unida stood for. This began to cause a split between those that believed all that Chicanos, all that Raza had to do was vote and run brown candidates, and those that understood that we had to completely determine our own destiny as a people. In other words, build for self-determination. So there was beginning to be a split, because at the beginning there was no one ever said, La Raza Unida, this is what we believe. It was just, La Raza Unida, we gotta get more Chicanos into office, we gotta get more people to register under La Raza Unida party, and that was it. There was no ideology behind it. It was like, no, this is what we want. This is what we're striving for. So there was people that understood we have to have an ideology. We have to have beliefs that guide us. You know, we can't just go out there and think, oh, we're just gonna vote, and that's it. You know, so it started becoming a split. There was, basically, the split was Jose Gutierrez, who was the young, well, he was young at that point. The picture of the young man that was right here, with his fist up like that. He was the one saying, no, we just need to be power brokers, we'll try to get the Democrats to do us favors. If not the Republicans, we'll try to, you know, make them do us favors. And then there was Jorge Gonzalez, who I mentioned way more. He's basically is the sort of like the ideological grandfather of La Raza Unida in the Partido and a lot of the Chicano movement. Because he said, no, we need ideology. We need to develop ideology. What are we fighting for? Are we really gonna get anything by just voting and just putting more brown people in office? I mean, we see that today. You know? He said, no, we need to develop this. We need to be, you know, at that point, they were saying Chicano nationalism and help ground a lot of the foundation for what we believe now, right? We are a nation, we are a people, we this and that. We need to be independent of the United States, self-determination. So that was a split that was beginning to develop.
So like that last part is like not relying on Republican or Democrat, relying on ourselves.
Exactly.
Separate.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. but yeah, well, we'll have question and answer at the end.
Sorry.
No, it's all good, brother. Yeah, next slide. Boom. 1975 at the Puerto Rico Libre Conference in Mexico DF, Jose Angel Gutierrez steps down as chair at the request of the Congreso de Aztlan, something he never admits. Juan Jose Peña becomes chair and Maria Elena Martinez becomes the vice chair. So that's both of them. It is in the 1980s. And also, you know, part of this is because it's important. You know, a lot of, again, in Chicano studies, a lot of the perspective we get is that 1975, the 70s came and everything just ended. There was nothing, nobody was organizing, nothing was happening, and people became Hispanics or whatever. You know, that's farther from the truth. You know, I grew up in the 80s. So pero I grew up in the movement, you know, and that's how I know Carlos when I was a kid. I grew up in the Partido. My dad, for a long time, was the chairperson. So I saw a lot of these things, you know, that should be included in Chicano studies. They are not. So it is in the 1980s that La Raza Unida matures into a serious revolutionary nationalist organization. Defines its ideology as Chicano revolutionary nationalism, guided by scientific socialism. Yes, that means communism. Develops relationships with other peoples and struggle domestically and internationally. So again, that's how we developed. It went from being, you know, this organization that at the beginning that was like just run candidates, and it slowly started developing to, wait, we're part of a much bigger struggle that encompasses way more than just running candidates and voting and all that. We could do that as a tool, but we have a task before us, you know, to liberate our people, to liberate this land that we're standing on. You know, so that's why they define their ideology as that. Ernesto Ayala becomes chairman, that's my dad, and he spells his name with an X because of Malcolm X. And Ayala makes developing Chicano revolutionary nationalism a prime focus of the Partido. We need an ideology. And I don't know why there's another about there, that was my mistake. And there, you know, again, to clarify some of the claims that, you know, Chicanos never worked with other people, or whatever. You know, there is my dad right there. That's the All African People's Revolutionary Party. That's the organization that the famous Kwame Ture, who was formerly known as Stokely Carmichael, belonged to, which I met as well. So that's them at African Liberation Day. We went to every single African Liberation Day that they would organize here in LA up until the early 2000s, when they, you know, stopped organizing it as much. This is my father, también in Mexico with the Partido Socialista de los Trabajadores in their General Assembly. Yeah, yeah, pops. ¿verdad? So they were doing a lot of international work. There was people from the partido that went to Nicaragua, they went to Cuba, El Salvador, China. I think some even went to Vietnam. I met with people there, ¿verdad? All over the country, you know, all African People's Revolutionary Party is all over the country as well. So we were building that relationship with them, you know. Not only them, but mainly them, there's also the African People's Socialist Party, and other groups like that. Whatever remnants were left of the Black Panther Party también. And pues sí, in Mexico, ¿verdad? There was also another group called the Congreso Cardenista, which we had a relationship with, you know. So, and it's not in here, but they actually organized a demonstration that went from San Isidro to the border, and they crossed over into Tijuana. And in Tijuana, all the different revolutionary parties there were waiting for all the Chicanos to come over, and they were saying, "Welcome, Chicanos." There's like pictures of this. I didn't have it here, but they literally were able to cross the border from the U.S. or from Aztlan, occupied Aztlan, to Mexico, to Tijuana. You know, so that's something that, again, all these things occurred, but they're just like totally ignored and forgotten, even in Chicano studies. You know, ironically and sadly, even in Chicano studies. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna take a quick pause, we're gonna move some of the rows back, and then we're gonna let some more people in, just so we can have more space. But we're gonna put the aisle back.
Yeah,
here, so-
we'll put that roll.
Sorry, guys, we're just gonna try to accommodate more people. Just quick back more, we can have. Thank you, guys, I appreciate it, appreciate it. You're not gonna see this? Thank you. All right, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
There's water, pan dulce. Aquí si quieren también.
No, but I have lunch. But they can sit on the floor. If they don't- I'll sit in the chair.
All right, thank you all for coming again. So yeah, we're building international relationships or domestic relationships with different organizations. All African People's Revolutionary Party. Also, a lot of them, I grew up, they were even closer than my own family. Believe it or not, ¿verdad? A lot of them have passed away already, pero they were like tíos and tías to me. ¿Verdad? So that's the world I grew up in, ¿verdad? As a member of La Raza Unida at 5 years old. Little guy, really. He's already La Raza Unida, too bad for him. Oh, yeah, it is. Taking self-determination as a serious task, it is also during this time that the Partido develops a working relationship with the International Indian Treaty Council. International Indian Treaty Council. The International Indian Treaty Council supports the creation of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo project. And remember this when you hear some of that stuff online. Formally recognizes Chicanos as indigenous to the spiritual land of Aztlan, as one of many indigenous nations that the US has warred against and broken treaties with. So that's the International Indian Treaty Council. They recognize Chicanos because we have a treaty with the United States, a war treaty, and we are indigenous to the land. It's like, don't believe me, there it is. Sent to my father. They no longer have that address there. Pero this is from William Bill Wapepa. He was the director of the International Indian Treaty Council. Tongue twister. With that, I wish to express our commitment to an ongoing relationship of mutual solidarity with La Raza Unida Party, AIM, American Indian Movement, and the International Indian Treaty Council wholeheartedly support. Listen to that, what they're saying. Wholeheartedly support the Chicano struggle for self-determination, which La Raza Unida Party represents. They said that, he said that. And not that anyone gives us legitimacy, but if our own people, because that's our raza. Native tribes are our raza. That's our people, but he clearly said it. They clearly recognize it, ¿verdad? We see it as one of the indigenous struggles for sovereignty and self-determination in this hemisphere. William Bill Wapeba, he also passed away already. So, yep, he sent that to my dad. Who was the chairman of La Raza Unida back then. That was 1984. I was 3 years old. Yeah. Looks like. Right here, this is another document that we have, I believe that's in 1980. And there's another quote from there that I think is very important, ¿verdad? In recent years, the International Indian Treaty Council has sought a means to bridge relations to include the Chicano indigenous people among the family of nations. The utilization of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo project as a catalyst for reunification has helped toward this purpose. The TGHP, the Guadalupe project, is an ongoing research and development component of the International Indian Treaty Council since 1980 in Fort Belknap, Montana, at the 6th IITC conference. At that time, the General Assembly of the International Indian Treaty Conference unanimously acknowledged the Chicano indigenous peoples and the spiritual land of Aztlan. That's the International Indian Treaty Council. You hear a lot of stuff online about quote unquote actual native people saying this or that. Well, here it is, actual native people organized, recognizing their own people who happen to be Chicanos. And Aztlan. Next slide. So this is just a quote because I think it encompasses, and she's not Chicana, she was Chilena, Raza. She already passed away as well, Martha Hardnicker. She's had this to say: "It is necessary to study the history of our countries to know the specific characteristics of our social formations, to study what defines our economic structure, the forms in which the different relations of production are combined, which relation dominates, what are the strong and weak points of this structure, to study the ideological structure, the dominant ideas among the masses, to study the structure of power, the internal contradictions of this power, etc. This study of our concrete social formations must be realized through the gathering of the greatest amount of data concerning this reality, critically analyzed in light of the general principles of Marxism-Leninism in order to obtain correct conclusions." In other words, you need to know as much about a problem to talk about it. Otherwise, you're not going to have a correct conclusion. We're talking about science. You know, so science, let's say an archaeologist doesn't make something up and then he says, "Oh, I found this bone here," and whatever, you know. I found this chicken bone in the trash can and it was a dinosaur. But that did. You know, that's not how science works. You gather all the data possible. You study it, you study your reality, you study the past, you study every aspect of it, then you come to a conclusion. So the next slide, if you can, compañera, that brother said it more bluntly. You'll see right now. No investigation.
All right.
Está, es todo. Thank you, Jeff. Next slide. In 1980, the Palestine Liberation Organization invited delegates from La Raza Unida Party to meet in Beirut, Lebanon. Chicanos and Chicanas like you were invited because you are recognized by people around the world as being colonized people in your own homeland. In your own homeland. This is your homeland. Don't let anybody tell you it isn't. Next slide. There you go. I don't know if you recognize this guy. He's Yasser Arafat. He was another picture, much younger, with an AK-47. These are delegates of the Raza Unida Party. They met with him in Lebanon because they couldn't. I mean, I think there was like 2 people that actually were able to go into Palestine. They had to be in Lebanon because you couldn't like outright just go in there. Juan Jose Peña, the chair at that time. Behind him is Daniel Osuna, who's still a member of La Raza Unida Party. Much older, of course, he was 20 years old right there. And yeah, see all their names right here. And, they met over there, next slide.
That pop right there in the bottom?
Who?
Is that your pop in the
Oh, no, that was, he wasn't able to go. Right. This is a quote from Rebecca Hill. She went there, she was the compañera that was there. We felt that we both had the same fight. They learned about our struggle, that Chicanos were being thrown out of their homeland. So they invited us on a fact-finding mission so we could come back and tell the world that there are two sides to every story. That's what she said. Compañera Rebecca Hill. Chicana in Lebanon, with Palestinian sisters and brothers. That's not her. Next slide. Okay, it's a little wordy here. And I'm sorry to keep you in my back. It says, I like reading, so I just, read wherever I can. Chicanos, like Palestinians, are a people displaced of their land by settler invasion. Chicanos developed out of the US invasion of Mexico and sections of indigenous people, some already identifying as Mexican at that point, still residing here after the 1848 Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. After US occupation of the northernmost half of then Mexico, the US begins land theft of native nations who had resisted Spanish occupation, and some even the nascent Mexican government who were criollos. The US also begins land theft through coercive legal means, such as taking land grants from people who held them. And I give this example here again to make the point that I'm trying to make. Encino, you guys know Encino, right?
Yeah.
Where there's probably no indigenous people living there. Today, working there, for sure, cleaning baby butts, was originally called Ciutcanga. And a gas station. This is a quote from the Fernandino Tatavian Band, the Mission Indians website. Los Encinos State Historic Park is located at the native village of Ciutcanga, meaning the place of the oaks, from which over 75% of the Tatavian descend. The natural spring provided a year-round source of water for our ancestors for thousands of years. In the Mexican period, our ancestors received the Rancho Encino land grant under the Mexican trust and protection. Again, that's not denying that they're Tatavian, they're Mexican. You get a Mexican land grant. However, the land was lost just several years later in the American period due to sharp business practices of a neighboring Spaniard named Vicente de la Osa. Today, you can visit the historic adobe Garnier building, natural water spring, etc. Here's the website. Was Encino State Historic Park, which, they mean the land grant was all of Encino. But again, the thing that, if you let the colonizer tell you your history, you're gonna have a totally wrong idea of how the world works and what place you take in it. Chicanos, the first Chicanos here could be argued, or Mexicanos, are people that descended from the tribes here. They were the first Mexicanos, who eventually, together with other Mexicanos that were here in other Raza, became Chicanos at a period. That's where it started. I mean, there's people in the Chicano movement that descend from Tomba, that descend from Tataviam, that descend from Yaqui, Navajo, Hopi, all these groups. But they're Chicanos. They grew up amongst us. They grew up as one of us. They, for example, my family, they're all Chicanos. I don't think I have any Tataviam in me, pero where I'm from is San Fernando in Pacoima. The original area there was obviously the Mexican part of town. That's where if you were Tataviam, you had to live there because you were considered, what do you think you were considered? Mexican. Everyone else that arrived later on in waves, indigenous people, they had to go live there. My family was part of those people. And they all together, now they lived in the Mexican part of town. They all spoke Spanish, they all ate tortillas and frijoles. They all were Catholic and went to Santa Rosa, which is right there in the barrio, an old church. So they all, were basically the same people. There was tribes, like I think the Pueblo were actually considered Mexican, even in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. This is a quote, again, from this book, Aztecas del Norte. They're supposed to be coming out with a new version, but someone did us the great favor of putting up the PDF. So if you just look up Aztecas del Norte PDF, it'll come out. If you Google that. Analco, this is a quote from that book. Again, making this point. Analco, the birthplace of the Chicano. On August 15, 1680, armed Native American rebels of the Tano, Tewa, Taos, Picuris, MS, and Apache nations entered Analco, the Mexican, now unharassed barrio next to Santa Fe in New Mexico. A Tano leader met with the governor of Termin of the Spaniards and told him that the rebels carried two banners, one bearing red, the other white. The red symbolized the war which the Spaniards could choose, while the white symbolized the peace which would prevail if the European invaders agreed to abandon Nuevo Mexico. The Indian freedom fighters asked that, quote, all classes of Indians who are in our power, in the letter, that's in the letter, be given up to them, both those in the service of the Spaniards and those of the Mexican nation of the suburb of Analco. He demanded also that his wife and children be given to him, and that likewise all the Apache men and women whom the Spaniards had captured in war be turned over to them, inasmuch as some Apaches who were among them were asking for them. We must be very grateful that Otermin wrote that down, because it tells so much about the history of the Chicano and of the ancient unity of la Raza Indígena, the indigenous race. Here, we not only see that the Pueblo and Apache freedom fighters were concerned about the liberation of their Mexican brothers from Spanish tyranny, but we also see that the Indian town of Analco was already pan-Indian, with Apache, Pueblo, and Mexican servants and slaves all living together under the common yoke of the European oppressor. Is it not from this common oppression that the Chicano has been born? An Indian with no tribe, an Indian of many tribes, or a mestizo born of the rape of his Indian mother? Look at our communities. Look at our community. Look at what we call Chicanos in general. You have people that just came here. You have people that are from one generation, two generations. You have people that descend from different tribes. You have people that have been here for many generations. You have people from Central America, because there have been people from Central America growing up here and they identify as Chicanos. You have Filipinos. You have people that are mixed. I've met people that are Arab or from India, and they grew up in the barrio and they say they're Chicanos. Well, I had a friend, he was white, he already passed away. He had a pacoima right here in his panza. And he, telling him, man, you're Chicano, man. Married a Chicana, his kids were all Chicanos, and he spoke like we speak, he's a Chicano. Is it not from that common oppression that Chicano has been born? That common oppression. That's what unites us. That's what unites the Palestinians. Whether they're from Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, Iraq, whatever, they are Palestinian. And that is an example that they give to our people. Next slide. Hispanic population share by county. So, wow, look where we are located mostly. Except for this part. That's not us. I know people get that, but it does. There is actually a lot of Raza there now. I was there a few years ago, and you drive into the rural area, and it's all Raza working in the fields. In the city, there's Raza. There's a lot of Haitians doing all the hard work, and then you have the Gusanos complaining about it. Yeah, I know. I was warned about that. I have a story about someone else doing that, but I can say that. But yeah, we're not making this up. I mean, we make it up, because we have babies. Pero I'm not making this up. That's actually a fact. It is there. What land is it encompassing?
What year is this?
This is actually from 2011, so it's probably even more.
Yeah.
Brown. Probably even here. The ice Chicanos. Look at that. And he actually made this. We made a meme about this during our Teleha Warriors. But this is what Juan Gonzalez from Democracy Now! Had to say in the last elections. And we're not saying it's good or bad, right? But we're saying it's something significant that we should take into account. And what has happened now is that there is a new brown belt voting bloc that is developed in the Southwest that includes Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico, and very soon Texas as well. Obviously, there's nothing California, because California, like they say, always goes blue, whatever. It'll go Aztlan one day, but he just basically said that there's political power in this part of the country. And we're saying, yes, there's political power there. And there's also a group of people there that have a long history there, that are a nation on their own. So, Juan Gonzalez said that. I believe so. Yeah. This is from a study they made early last year, and they did it before the pandemic as well. But it said this, and I didn't even write any of this down. That's what I got from the document. If Latinos, quote unquote Latinos in the US were an independent country, they said this. The researchers found their GDP would be the world's 5th largest, outpacing even the United Kingdom, France, and India, among the 10 largest GDPs in the world. The US, quote unquote, the quote unquote US Latino GDP grew at the second fastest rate across 2020 and 2021. Only China's GDP grew faster. And despite being only 19% of the US population, Latinos, quote unquote, were responsible for 39% of the growth of US real GDP during 2020 and 2021. That's from people that pick fields, that, build buildings, that, work in fast food, that work at Walmart, work at all these places, that sell paletas, that do all this stuff. We are this economic powerhouse. We are this economic powerhouse. La Raza. That is what La Raza is. Next slide. What does the enemy say? Okay, let's see. This is what we're saying. This is what Chicanos in the movement say. What do they say? What is our enemy saying? Oh man, look who's this piece of trash. Okay, so this guy here, he wrote a book in 1993. This is a quote from his book, all right? He is saying this. The United States is not exempt from the potential nightmare. In a decade or two, the southwestern region of America is likely to be predominantly Hispanic, right? Mainly as a result of continuous immigration from Mexico. It is not inconceivable that in this community, champions of the Palestinian principle could emerge. Oh, who? These would demand not merely equality before the law or naturalization, or even Spanish as a first language. Instead, they would say that since they form a local majority in the territory, which was forcibly taken from Mexico in the War of 1848, they deserve a state of their own. But you already have a state. It's called Mexico, would come the response. You have every right to demand civil rights in the United States, but you have no right to demand a second Mexico. This hypothetical exchange may sound far-fetched today, but it will not necessarily appear that way tomorrow, especially if the Palestinian principle is allowed to continue to spread, which it surely will if a new Palestinian state comes into being. This guy is tying Palestine to what? Aztlan. The oppressor understands it. Do we understand that? Do all those people online understand that? Next slide, please. This is from Samuel Huntington. You know a little bit about this guy. He wasn't just some guy that talked and wrote books with her. He actually worked under the Johnson administration. He founded the Trilateral Commission. He was like one of those big brain guys for the United States ruling class and all that. He had this to say, and I'm sorry, I keep reading, turn my back on you guys to feel bad. Pero I like to read. The persistent inflow of Hispanic immigrants threatens to divide the United States into two peoples, two cultures, and two languages. Unlike past immigrant groups, Mexicans and other Latinos have not assimilated into mainstream US culture, forming instead their own political and linguistic enclaves. Then he goes on to say, no other immigrant group in the US history has asserted or could assert a historical claim to US territory, right? We're talking about land. Mexicans and Mexican Americans can and do make that claim. Almost all of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Nevada, and Utah was part of Mexico until Mexico lost them as a result of the Texan War of Independence, whatever, and the Mexican War of 1846 to 1848. Mexico is the only country that the United States has invaded, occupied its capital, placed the Marines in the Halls of Montezuma, that's part of Chapultepec, and then annexed half its territory. Mexicans do not forget these events. Quite understandably, they feel that they have special rights in these territories, unlike other immigrants. Or, quote, unlike other immigrants, Boston College political scientist Peter Scarry notes, Mexicans arrived here from a neighboring nation that has suffered military defeat at the hands of the United States, and they settled predominantly in a region that was once part of their homeland. Mexican Americans enjoy a sense of being on their own turf that is not shared by other immigrants. This is the ruling class of the United States. The other guy, obviously, the ruling class of the parasite called Israel, Zionist parasite. They recognize our potential. Again, do we recognize it? Next slide, please. This is a tweet again from this moron. It's the President Trump is right. I built a wall along Israel's southern border. It stopped all illegal immigration. Great success, great idea. He puts it right there. If you go to the CIA website, I know it's kind of scary. I did it. On the CIA website, Intelligence Digest, June 1981. Intelligence Digest was a journal available to CIA and other intelligence agents. You'll find this, just this page actually. And arriba, it says, sanitized copy. And then this right here, like it doesn't go on, it just stops right there. Again, a reference to the PLO right there. And then it says here, there are significant signs, the July 1980 issue of Intelligence Digest World Report contained the following passage. We have for some considerable time now warned about the politicizing of the Mexicans within the US and the claims for lost and stolen Mexican lands. So you will not be unduly surprised to learn that a Washington DC school board official has asked that one of the American hostages in Iran be released because he is a Chicano, and that Chicanos are Mexicans who have lived under the yoke of US imperial aggression and occupation since the land was stolen from Mexico in 1836 and 46. For 200 years, the Latin American countries have experienced the same kind of US domination and control the Iran experienced between 1953 and 79. As fellow victims of US greed and racism, Iran and the Latino community must learn more about one another and stand together. And that's one of the briefs. Of course, they talk about Ireland, who also has a similar struggle, Irish. It says we covered Ireland, we showed into Mexico could claim Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Nevada, Utah, together with part of Wyoming, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's another comment. There are some 8 to 10 million illegal immigrants within the US. Most of them Mexican, and the president of Mexico has already indicated that the illegals must be treated properly. The Mexicans are deeply aware of the cultural heritage and of what the Europeans, Americans, and Spanish have done to them. With the growth of Mexican oil power and the changing relationship with a formerly, but not anymore, all-powerful United States, the lines on the map will assume a political importance undreamed of by most Americans today. That's the CIA. Next slide. And this other vile animal. This is from an interview they did to him on Playboy magazine. I guess they had interviews in that magazine. When asked on a Playboy magazine interview, July 1978, what was the greatest threat to America today? They literally asked him that. You can look this up too. This is what the CIA director, William Colby, had to say. The most obvious threat is that there are 60 million Mexicans today, and there are going to be 120 million of them by the end of the century. There are 7 million or 8 million Mexicans who live in the United States today, and of the extra 60 million who will be around by the end of the century, there is no way to keep a good 20 million of them from living in the country. We can reinforce the border patrol, and they don't have enough bullets to stop them all.
Wow.
The CIA said that. The director of the CIA. We didn't make it up, he said it. Yeah. Oh,
I think there's people trying to take pictures.
We'll give it 5 seconds.
And of the 3, right?
Right?
American Dream.
No. So the Chicano, Mexicano, La Raza, and the Palestinian people are 2 separate peoples with similar histories of resistance to occupation. Chicanos, like the Palestinian people, are indigenous peoples born as distinct and relatively new nations by the carving of colonial borders upon their homelands. Like the Palestinians, the Chicano struggle for self-determination can cause a serious blow to US imperialism. Palestinian independence would mean the withering away of Israel, which would signify the waning of US hegemony in the Middle East. Chicano indigenous independence in Aztlan was signifying the withering away of the US settler state domestically and US imperialism internationally. Because imagine, if we are an economic power on our own, if we have a history on this land, if we have political power, if we were to recognize that as a nation, as a group of people, as people that are sitting here to Texas, to wherever there's Raza, and we say, you know what, we're our own people, we don't need the United States. What kind of a blow would that be to the United States? That'd be like chopping off their legs as a kind, you know? We can do that. But do we know that? Both Chicanos and Palestinians are condemned to violent oppression and genocide, either physically or culturally, in order to maintain the status quo. Attacks on Chicano ethnic studies, gentrification, anti-immigrant hysteria, the prison industrial complex, ICE, border patrol, police departments, all serve in one way or another to subjugate La Raza to colonial authorities and erase our national identity and consciousness. Ask yourself why more Chicanos don't identify as Chicanos. Because they don't want to? Or because they're taught not to? I mean, why do most Raza identify as Latino? Because that's what you hear on the news, that's what you hear the government call us, that's what you hear the TV say, that, you know, in the school they tell you that. Because we don't want us to know, you know what? Okay, let's not argue. Maybe we are Latino. But within that, those nations of Latinos, there are Chicanos. There are the Chicano people, the Chicano nation, you know? Because that's what brings us together. Because think about it, when the Chicano movement burst onto the scene in the 60s and 70s, that's when we most moved. That's when we most progressed as a people. Because we all came, well, maybe not all, but the majority of us, a good number of our people, again, that included all sorts of raza, not just, you know, they always say Mexican Americans. There was all sorts of people. There's even pictures from the Chicano moratorium where people had banners that said it's the Indians of all tribes, and they're marching at the Chicano moratorium. It united all sorts of people and it said, this is who we are as one people. Where we might be different. Of course, we might have, you know, our distinct identities, we might have our personal identities, but we all are Chicanos, we all are Chicanas, we all are La Raza. We might come from California or Texas, we might be from this little pueblo here, or this little town there, or the city here, or this tribe, but we recognize a big portion of this as Aztlan. That doesn't mean we ignore that there could be other names for certain parts of it. They're saying that unifies us as one solid group of people. Because that's the only, imagine if Palestinians were fighting the same way as we are here. Oh, don't call me Palestinian, that's colonial. That's based on the British Mandate. ¿Verdad? Oh, no, I'm from Lebanon. Oh, I'm from Syria. Oh, no, I think they even call them that actually. Israeli Arab, ¿verdad? Don't call me Palestinian, I'm Israeli Arab. I'm proud to be Israeli Arab. Or I'm an Israeli of Arab descent. You know, all the things that we're arguing about, ¿verdad? Imagine how far would they get? I mean, Israel would have run over them already. The only reason they can is because they said, we are Palestinian and we are in Palestine. F you. We will fight you to the end. We will fight you to the end. That's the lesson that the Palestinian people have shown us, have shown the world. You know, and it's in this horrible time that they're going through, or that the world is going through. It is beautiful though to see that resistance. You know, we don't mean like resistance, like, oh, don't say this or that. The actual resistance of the Palestinian people that, you know, they are facing, you know, they're basically facing the United States and they're defeating them. They're defeating them. These people armed with the little that they have. They're defeating the empire. They're defeating all these powers. They are defeating the United States that put Israel there. And they're saying, you will not just run us over. We will fight you and we'll meet you in the battlefield and we will, I don't know if you've seen that red triangle. We'll put that red triangle right over you. ¿Verdad? That's an example to humanity. That's an example to Chicanos. I'm not saying go out there and do something we don't, you know. The example is that they are organized. They're not doing that like just, you know, going all crazy, whatever. They are part of organizations. ¿Verdad? One of them being the PLO. They are part of an organization. They are part of a group that has a plan, that has their ideology, and they're moving towards it. ¿Verdad? Next slide, Camilo. I think that's part of it. Gracias. Chicanx. ¡Que viva Palestina! ¡Viva! ¡Viva, viva! ¡Viva, viva! ¡Viva, viva! From Aztlan to Palestine, gracias. Hello. Questions? Any questions, comments?
I can pass the mic around. So we're gonna pass around the mic and just, we'll give you about 1 minute to ask a question and then we'll pass it on.
Like, what were some of the programs that the Raza Unida had in the community? I know like the Black Panthers had like the breakfast program and programs such as like that. What were some of the programs that they had in the community?
Back then, well, yeah, basically the same thing except for the rifles. It's the free food program, but they had it's the English classes, they had youth groups, they had drug programs, they had también they had study groups. We still have study groups for that. It's the youth conferences, it's the police brutality events. I know, for example, there in San Fernando, it's the old jail underground. It was known back in the days that a lot of people would commit suicide right there. You know what that means, right? They would find like Chicanos hanging. They committed suicide. So that was a common thing there in San Fernando. So yeah, there was like all sorts of programs they would do that, not only in San Fernando, but like everywhere. Because one of the things to note, I mean, La Raza Unida existed like all over Aztlan. There was chapters in Michigan, también in the Midwest. Wherever there was Raza, there was a Raza Unida party chapter. Back then. We're getting back to that, but we're actually doing a big organizing drive. We have people again in Michigan, we have people in Texas, Arizona, all over California, Nuevo Mexico, también. We have people that are from tribes out there, también, that are saying, well, I'm Chicano too, man. You know, and I'm gonna organize La Raza Unida. So, yeah, that's some of the programs. Various programs. Entrenador, the newsletter, yeah. También. What else?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is awesome. I agree with everything you presented. I'm a member of a Freedom Road Socialist Organization. And we uphold the right of self-determination for the Chicano Nation. Well, I have two questions. We have something about scientific socialism, you know, which we study also. I don't know if you could touch on what scientific socialism, the Marxist classics, look at what is a nation is one thing. And also the strategic alliance of African Americans within the United States, to help defeat US imperialism. Big question.
Yeah, so one of the things, please, lady. My compañera. Thank you. Again, like I was making the point that one of the things that people or certain groups of people that split in the Raza Unida kept saying is we need to build ideology. What do we actually believe? What are we basing our beliefs on? Because we need to have that, right? So there was, let's say, different types of nationalist thought, right? There was like the nationalism that, you're Chicano or you're Raza, whatever, that's it, that's all that matters. And then that's just narrow nationalism, but cultural nationalism, that you're just like involved with cultural things. You think that's what's gonna somehow benefit our people? I mean, you need cultural things, but that's not the struggle, right? Then you have revolutionary nationalists that understand, there's a whole revolutionary process that you need to go through with your people, ¿verdad? And in liberating your people, liberating our people, is exactly what all the Palestinians understand is we're also bringing in a new world. We don't only just want to replace brown, people in power and then that's it. That's not going to solve the problems of our people. It's capitalism, the economic system that was forced on us. It was forced on us by the colonizers, by the United States. That creates well, you all know, I'm sure, pero workers, working class, it creates a system where a group of people, the majority, are creating the wealth of society. So if you can get enriched, and then they go away at night to their houses in Encino.
Or
The
the whole entire place they bought out.
Yeah, exactly. Everything they bought out, gentrifying our barrios.
Basically.
Yep. So, Yeah, so we understand that, so wait, what do we want, brother? Do we want to just replicate the same thing again with brown people? I mean, exactly, hell no, you know, so we want to bring a new society, a new reordering of the economy. You know, a new reordering of how we relate to each other, brother. So how are we guided to that, brother? Is it just based on, you know, oh, things should just be different? Or, you know, we should just get along with each other? No, there's a whole scientific understanding to how things actually work. You know, there's this book called Socialism, Utopian and Scientific. That's a really good pamphlet. It's like a pamphlet. ¿Verdad? And in there, Engels, que era el compañero of Marx, working compañero, ¿verdad? He writes about how there was like all these ideas of utopianism, ¿verdad? That, you know, kind of see that in the Chicano movement as well, where they were like, well, you know, things should just be different. Or, you know, if we built a new town, it's gonna come about differently now, but we gotta build a new town. You hear some Chicanos, ¿verdad? And I'm not talking crap, but I'm saying, I'm not, but I'm saying, you know, you hear a lot of Chicanos say, you know, oh, we should all just move into the desert and start anew, you know, or do little things like do stuff like that. And it's like, well, no, the people are here. They're not over there. There might be some of our people out there, but majority are here. How do we solve our problems? We need to analyze society. We need to analyze how things got to where they are at. We need to analyze, you know, what, again, like the compañera said, Martha Harnecker, what are the relations in those societies? What are the beliefs in there? You know, how do we understand all this and who we are? So we take science, we're scientific about our approach. So when we say, again, when I say Chicano revolutionary nationalism, is that, yes, we understand we are a nation. Yes, we understand, you know, Chicanos are a nation, we should be proud, all that stuff. We need independence, we need self-determination from the United States. But our struggle is also to build socialism. ¿Verdad? We are building the new world together with all other people of the world. Together with all oppressed people, together with all the working class of the world, we are building a new world, you know? So we're guided by that thought, scientific socialist thought. Not utopian science socialist, scientific socialism. That we try to analyze things, we try to understand things, we debate, we talk, but that we, again, like we said at the beginning, we try to sharpen ourselves with each other, with that. Maybe I have an idea that's not that as well thought out, and I talk about it here with you all. And I get a better idea, and we all get a better idea of what we're talking about, but that's how reality works. Again, in any field, anywhere, without, if you study, you know, whatever, molecular, whatever, the space and everything, you do the same process. That's what we're doing. That's, you know, as revolutionaries, we are scientists, ¿verdad?
Yeah.
We're studying. I mean, look at all these books. That's why people talk about like revolutionaries, like, oh, they like to read a lot. Yeah. Also, it's not just reading, we need to be out in the field también, just like a scientist. Reads takes their theory to the world.
Awareness. Keep talking about it till your last breath.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything más?
So I've never been to anything like this, you know, so this is like super like just beneficial for me and like, at like a lot of our rallies, we're like, who's the giant? And it's like, we are, and sometimes they're like, maybe just 20 of us. There's like 60 of us, you know, but just trying to encourage people like, just what I've seen here, like, we do technically outnumber everyone, you know? And like, is it make sense? Like, we'll see, like, even the division between Northern California and Southern California, me coming from Stockton, based upon geography, I'm already assumed to be affiliated with something. But then I try to look past that and hope everybody else does it. I'm trying to be for brown people as a whole. And me getting past that, I'm like, oh, wow, like this is amazing. That we had a thing for the Just State in Victorville and San Jose. And I was like, it's powerful. It was Northern California, Southern California, someone from SoCal went up to San Jose to support that event. And it almost made me want to cry. You know what I mean? Like that was a cool thing for just what we're working through that. For this generation, expect I'm kind of had whatever my part is. But and so like you said, we share ideas, like does it make sense? Like I said, I'm like the simpleton guy. You know what I mean? But is there like still like, or is it like fantasy to think that like boycotts still exist to where like our buying power focused on, hey, we're not doing this, we're not doing that, and somehow rallying for them to recognize, oh crap, and us to recognize, damn, we didn't buy that, we didn't do that, we focused, because someone like you that got way more knowledge than me, like, you know, this is what we're not gonna buy, and this is what we're gonna do, just to kind of like flex a little bit. Like, is that like fantasy, or is that like, then how does someone like me help organize to spread that word so we can flex a little bit, you know?
First of all, thank you, no, Palestine, this whole cause, I think it really talks about that. I mean, maybe some of you all started seeing those announcements on Instagram and Facebook about Starbucks, you could get a discount coffee and all that. McDonald's giving away meals or whatever. That's because there's a boycott on them right now because of what's going on. You know, Starbucks and McDonald's, they keep doing Disney también. Yeah, they keep I think McDonald's giving meals to the IDF, to the IOF, because they're not defending, I mean, I guess they're defending. Without that, they gave them meals, Starbucks keeps doing business over there, so there's a very effective boycott on them, ¿verdad? They pulled out of like a bunch of different countries already, ¿verdad? They don't really say that on the main news, but you can see that online, ¿verdad? So they're losing billions of dollars, so it is effective. It is effective, ¿verdad? It works, and it can still work, ¿verdad? I mean, in our history, Chicano history, ¿verdad? There was the grape strike, ¿verdad? Which we all know about, went into the 80s, but it like halted a lot of the production of grapes. That halted a lot of the grapes. I mean, I remember growing up, you'll be like, if you're Chicano, you don't go to Mounds and buy grapes. You don't do that, ¿verdad? And it was just a thing because people had it in their minds, you know. And what? Oh.
They had one on Driscoll too.
A Driscoll también, that's right. Yeah, there was a boycott on Driscoll's. It wasn't grapes. It was strawberries. Yeah. Blueberries. Yeah, those are good. Yeah. So there was strikes. So all these boycotts, I mean, they do work. But it's usually, I think, it has to be something that gains the attention of a big group of people. Yeah, no, it's not fantasy at all. It does work. But we could see it working with Starbucks and McDonald's. You know, they're like desperate to sell their stuff. They won't say why, but they are. So. Yeah.
Any other questions?
You first.
This is my first time, like, being around something like this, and I appreciate everyone's space. It's not really a question, but I feel like it's important. And it was really heartwarming to see how you appreciate your dad and, everything. And I think it's important to teach our seeds, especially with the boycotting thing. Like I said, it's not a question, but it was a proud moment as a mom because my kids, they used to love McDonald's, but ever since this and then talking about it to them and then, they're like, no, I love McDonald's, but no, we can't do that. And they were like trying to look where else they could go, instead of there. And, as a kid to give up something like that, but to them to understand too. It was just a proud moment, and I feel like things like this are important, so thank you again, and then thank you for sharing your knowledge.
Other questions? Comments?
Yeah, just real quick, where can people find out more about La Raza Party?
That's Party.org or Facebook, Instagram, también La Raza Party.
Hi, my name's Ana. I was born actually in Zacatecas, Mexico, and I attended school much of elementary, middle school, high school. And when I got to high school, I was like, well, I got no papers. I'm not going to college. I cannot get financial aid. Fuck it. I'm not going to go to fucking college. And then I registered myself. And then I was like, wait, this is actually kind of cool because I get to choose what I want to study. And then sort of like a whole world opened up for me. And then I started picking up books that I had never even bothered to read when I was in high school. And the first Chicano studies class that I took, I was in, I think four semesters in, 5 semesters in. And it was a very eye-opening experience because I had known that I was Mexican, but I felt that my place was in Mexico, in Zacatecas, that's where I would find myself again. And that I was really wrong about that once I took Chicano studies class. Yeah, again, it was like a whole world opened up. And I realized that we get to know each other where we are, where we stand, where our people are. And the struggle is essentially the same if you were to grow up in a place that was in a place that was where there was a lot of black struggle, then you would associate yourself with the black struggle somehow, within the working class community. If you were in a place where there was a lot of Middle Eastern people, you would associate yourself with the Middle Eastern working class struggle. And so this is essentially something I've gotten to know over the course of 3 or 4 years. I started attending the anti-war rally movement in 2008, 2007, and it quickly died down around 2011, 2012 when Obama was elected. And I wondered what the hell happened, But that's when I first found out about the Palestinian struggle, and if it wasn't for that, I would not have known. What I see now with, the resistance here, or the way that we are becoming part of a greater movement, is that a lot of people don't know, like, what is happening, backed by US, backed by other imperialist countries. And I think it's very clear now what is happening. And I think that, like, our duties now, in my honest opinion, is to center this in education with our youth. I agree with you. I'm a mother of 3. My other 2 are their dad, but I also talk to them about that we're not supporting these corporations that are clearly mistreating other people that deserve a life just as much as we do. And they don't think twice about it, So if they're able to see that, why can't we see that? Why can't regular people watching TV see that? But because we are in a situation where we're in, and it is our duty to educate, from sort of this forward, Anyway, thank you.
Right, connecting Palestine and Aztlan and the police. So if you could talk about capitalism, the Texas Rangers, the history of policing, and the relationship between LAPD and the IDF.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. You got this.
30 seconds, they suck. Well, okay, we hear about the birth of the police, right? And they always say about slave patrols and all that. Okay, that's true in the Southeast. In the Southwest, the birth of the police, at least in relation to Chicanos, is the Rangers, because the Rangers were organized to explicitly put down Native and Mexican rebellions. The Texas Rangers are like the worst example of that, where they lynched hundreds and hundreds of Chicanos, Mexicanos, probably more than that. And more history you probably never even hear in Chicano studies, maybe you might hear some of it. But so in relation to us, in the Southwest, we call Aztlan, police are an occupying force, and they originally came from that, from hunting Mexicans, natives, because they saw no difference. The Mexicans were just the natives that spoke Spanish and were Catholic. That's it. So that included a lot of people that are from tribes. So that's what they are. The police are an occupying force. They're an occupying force in our barrios. What does that mean? It means that they come into our barrios, into our neighborhoods, into our cities, into our towns, and they enforce a foreign law that is not ours, the law of the occupier. Now, you want to be more explicit, what they have to do with IDF is they get trained by them. LAPD gets trained by the IOF. The Israeli occupying force, or ITF, Is that terrorist forces? I will.
Oh, yeah.
So that, but they're occupying forces, they're military forces, they've been used to put down, Chicano, obviously also African rebellions and movements. That's not saying like, there's a, stupid saying from right wingers like, oh, you're gonna call in trouble. You know, as you give me a gun and let me use it, okay, I won't call anyone else, but okay, that's not the case. ¿Verdad? Pero, that's their role, that's their historical role, their role is to enforce the law. I mean, let's look at the compañeros of the Justice 8. What in reality have they done? They have taken that role of the Mexicano, the Chicano, of being subservient and put their head down and being invisible. They said, no, we're gonna get in your face. They're not breaking any laws or causing any violence really, but we're gonna get in your face and we're gonna tell you to back off. You come to our houses, we go to your house. You come to our neighborhood, we go to your neighborhood. That's the only problem, or the only problem for them that they've done. They have broken no law. They have violated anyone's rights. They just said, this is who we are, or you're gonna respect us, or we're gonna go to your house and knock on the door, just like you do to us. You come into our doors and you bust down the door. You run in there with guns, you pull us out, you drag us out, you beat us, you gas us. We're gonna go to your neighborhood and we're gonna record you and we're gonna see you and you're gonna come out and show how much of a person you are. No, they're cowards, right? That's the only thing that they've done. That's why they're in there. Think about it, because they're Chicanos, because they're Mexicanos, because they're indigenous people that said, you are not gonna treat us this way anymore. And we have this technology that we can use in our favor. You're not gonna do that to us anymore. We are human beings and you are gonna respect that. That's the only thing that they've done. That's why that brother enamorado and all the compañeras and compañeros are in there. They are political prisoners. And the only reason you don't hear about it as much on the news or anything else is because they're Chicanos. But the beautiful thing is that the reason you do hear about it is because Chicanos are organizing, because the Raza is organizing, and we are resisting. And we are saying, whether you recognize us or not, you will respect us, and you will respect who we are, and you better respect us on our land. And you know what I'm supposed to say?
Thank you so much, Ernesto, for coming and sharing with us. My question to you is, can you kind of make a comment on like the times that we're living in right now? I feel like we're living in like this very important time in history. Like we just saw the Army of God going to the Texas border and like demanding that Biden do more about the migrant crisis. And I just kind of want to get your thoughts on like what you think the future, not to be all like depressing, but just kind of get like a realistic look of what the border could look like if they succeed in Palestine. Let's just say like they would get away with what they're doing in Palestine. What would that mean for us, or as La Raza, and as Trump coming into office, and just like all these different factors? I'm just hoping that maybe you can like just shine a light on like what the stage is being set for. So if you could get some comments on that.
So if we see the world, the United States is not the power it was 20 years ago. It's not the power, not even 10 years ago. It's not the power it was 30 years ago, 40 years ago. If they are not that anymore. There's like governments, people all over the world that have turned their back on the US, and rightly so, right? You have in the rest of our continent, in Latino America, you have all these governments that continue to be reelected. They're revolutionary governments, or they're more on the left, ¿verdad? And they're doing more for their people. They're detaching themselves from the United States. They've been doing that for more or less the past 20 years. Now you have all these government, you have other world powers emerging, China, Russia, ¿verdad? And they're challenging this hegemony the United States has had, ¿verdad? So the United States, they're scared. They're scared. That's why they're so ¿verdad? Fearful of losing Israel. Because again, Israel is the United States in the Middle East. Israel is their stamp right there. Israel is their base. But they totally fund it. They totally give it everything it needs to be a nation, which it's totally a fabricated nation, but it didn't come out of the ground. Neither did the United States, but the United States is not something that came from the people. But it was created by Europeans that invaded and all this other stuff. So the United States is on shaky ground right there. I mean, there's still a world power. There's still something to be, militarily feared by, ¿verdad? Fear of, ¿verdad? But they're not who they used to be. They know that. the comments that we saw here, you know, of what the way they feel about the Raza, shows us what they fear, but that internally, if that happens, I mean, look, again, I know Matt and myself, we talk about this all the time, we talk about this with Anna all the time, but, what did, Trump, what did he, you know, what was he known for when he started his campaign? What was the first words out of his mouth? Yeah, what he talked about a group of people. Us, he talked about, he said Mexicans are this and that. He said that, right? And he said that about any other group of people, it would have been that would have been emphasized. He said that about the Raza. That is what made him the popular person that amongst the settlers, amongst white nationalists, amongst white America. That's what made him the person that he is. That's what raised him. That right there, to talk about Mexicans. When there was that one a lawyer that was gonna take him to court or something, I forgot what it was, a Chicano guy. What did he say about him? He can't do anything to me. He's a how are you gonna let him judge me? He's a Mexican. You know? He literally said that. Had it been about anyone else, that would have been all over the news. What did he say about Central Americans? He said they were Mexicans. ¿Verdad? They're gangsters. ¿Verdad? So, you know, you have like that guy Samuel Huntington, and that was back in the early 2000s. He's like, they actually say he's one of the people that helped influence this whole movement. They call it nativist, which doesn't make sense. But you know, white people, basically white people that are in fear of being replaced internally, rather in the United States. There's the same thing in Europe, you know, but this is in Europe. It's the same conscious of what they've done, you know, but they literally fear that the world is changing, you know, and they fear that what they have done to the world, in particular what they have done to us, we're gonna do to them. No, we're not crazy genocidal. We want liberation, ¿verdad? That's what we want. Pero so they understand all these things, ¿verdad? And the world is changing. So they see that the United States is on shaky ground internationally, and they're thinking, well, domestically, who can actually challenge us? Who actually has a tie to this land? But I mean, look at like Compañera was saying about the border with where Canada? No, the border with Mexico.
Yeah.
That's what they're in fear of. And even if you go back into I forgot his name, there was this guy right after the United States invaded, and they were literally debating this. You know, this to take it back to some people that talk about why didn't the United States take out of Mexico? They were debating whether they should take all of Mexico, but they weren't sure of it. You know why? Too many Mexicans, too many Indians, without too many mixed blood, mongrel, whatever, you know. So they were like, what are we gonna do with all those people? You know, so that was literally an argument. They argued this. So they didn't take all of Mexico. They took well, they did this part, obviously, right? And New Mexico, and I think was Arizona, weren't recognized until like the early 1900s. I think New Mexico until like the 30s or something. It wasn't recognized as a state. You know why?
Too many Mexicans.
Too many Mexicans. That's when officially there was more white people in New Mexico and then Arizona to be recognized as a state. So they know that numbers is a big thing, and they fear, you know, that being overwhelmed with these people, us, could cause problems for them, you know. But they've needed us all along. I mean, just think about it. Kind of like the way, I don't know if you all, when you read into Marxist theory and how capitalism creates the conditions to destroy itself. But colonialism, settler colonialism, the United States has created the conditions to destroy itself because they needed workers in the Southwest. They needed people that were going to build the cities, build the train tracks, not putting down any other community, but most train tracks were actually built by Mexicans. They needed people to farm the fields, to work the fields, to do all this labor, to make it the booming economy it is now. California and Texas are the two states that give the most GDP to the United States. So they needed all that. What did they do? They allowed our communities that were already here to become bigger because they needed more workers. So even though they were talking, you know, like, oh, those immigrants, those Mexicans invading, but then they need us. So we have, you know, it's like we repopulated the Southwest with indigenous people. You know, they have created Aztlan for us. You know, they have literally created Aztlan for us. But the people of Aztlan don't know it. They don't know it. They're, we're over here debating, oh, you can't say that. Or more majority of Raza don't even think of that, they have created their own conditions to destroy themselves. But they're in fear that we figure that out. So when you hear some of these people online, you should kind of question, where are they coming from? Really? Are they really about decolonization, or are they more about confusing the biggest threat to the United States domestically? Because that's what they've done. If Chicanos don't know, again, the Palestinians talked about national identity. That's what keeps them together despite everything. That's the same thing for Chicanos. That's the same anywhere you go on earth that people have been colonized and they're robbed of their identity. If you keep your identity, that's what keeps you together. It's like your family. If you understand who your family is and all that, if they would try to break into your house, but instead of arguing amongst each other, you make that united front and expel the burglar or whatever. Right? Same thing here, same thing as nations, as peoples. If we understand who we are, they cannot, penetrate us. They cannot cut into us. That we resist. So they have created those conditions. They have created Aztlan. They have created Chicano. So yes, those in a way they do come from colonialism, but they're these people in this new reality that are indigenous. That we express ourselves this way now, ¿verdad? So again, the Chicano, they created it. They cause, as they drain Mexico and the rest of our continent. They suck it dry, and then they're like, why do these people come here? We gotta stop them. But they need these people here, and those people are only following migratory patterns that we've had for tens of thousands of years. We've been doing that for tens of thousands of years. The same people. I mean, you want to go further back into history? The Southwest, what it's called the Southwest, right? A good number, I don't know the majority, but a good number of the languages in the Southwest are Uto-Nahuatl languages. Uto-Nahuatl is where it's like this, but all these languages that have a common origin, right? One of those languages is Nahuatl, that the people in the Mexicas spoke or speak still. This big group of Nahuatl speakers still in Mexico, millions. But how did people that live all the way down there speak a language that originates all the way, where it actually originates, according to a lot of studies? California, Southern San Joaquin Valley, Bakersfield. How did that go all the way over there? How did corn go from its origin in southern Mexico all the way up here? So we have this history that the United States, first Spain, but then the United States came again and intercepted us, and they said, no, now this is the reality. We in person, we show them, no, you're wrong, brother. You're on our land. You have imposed yourself on this timeline that we already have going for thousands and thousands of years.
So how do people get involved with the Raza Unida, or how do we essentially create a wider network? How do we organize? Because every day, every week is just, we need to build this resistance, there's political prisoners, I mean, since the beginning of our struggle. And so now, I mean, what do? Like, we can attend these conversations and presentations all day long, but how do we get into the streets? How do we put that into action,
Thank you. Again, razunidaparty.org is we require, because it's important to study, we recognize that as an organization, you have to study. We need to know what does the Raza Unida believe, et cetera, what is the direction that we're going in. We require studies. We have online study groups. They're on Zoom. If you join those study groups, they're every Wednesday at 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Se me olvidó, huh? Vice Chair. Don't tell anybody.
There's mountain time zone and then
Yeah.
Pacific time zone.
Yeah.
There was another question.
Oh, yeah.
So just go to the website.
Just go to the website.
Yeah, you guys can talk to Ernesto about that at the end. Let's get through some more questions about the discussion, and then we can close the night.
Yeah, company, I agree with you that US imperialism is weak and on the decline, right? And we gotta help, we're in the belly of the, so we have the special responsibility of the people of the world to make sure we stick the dagger within it, right? And, Freedom Road Socialist Organization, our strategy for revolution is to unite the oppressed nations of the US, which is primarily the Chicano indigenous people and the Black nation. Strategically with all working people. We do believe that we got to organize working people in the US, so we strategically go into workplaces. And yes, they're white folks. We organize white folks, Black folks, Chicanos to join the revolution. Our site is frso.org. So, the US is under decline. We gotta make sure we stick the dagger up its, whatever you wanna call it, stomach wrap. But we have to organize, join an organization, join the partido, join Freedom Road, join whatever organizations in your community and organize. Thank you.
A question. I was familiar with a lot of statistics you're talking about. One of another statistic that, maybe you can speak to is the fact that, in every single state, so-called non-Hispanic white population share is in decline in every state, except for DC, which is because it's gentrification, right? The city, right? Well, I'm saying, but the numbers are going down, even in primarily white states. I mean, the white population share of Alabama is going down. I mean, every single place, the population share, the percentage of their population is going down. And almost every state is on the rise. The average age of a so-called non-Hispanic white is 63. The median age for our population is 11. So I was gonna get curious, what do these statistics bode for the future?
One, it shows who the working class is. It shows who's working, ¿verdad? It's brown people, it's Raza, ¿verdad? As much as they say they hate us, they need us. Outside of Aztlan now, ¿verdad? I know after New Orleans, the tragedy that happened there, ¿verdad? The majority of the people that moved in to rebuild the city was all Raza, and total indigenous Raza. ¿Verdad? Also, I'm telling Florida, I was surprised. I would drive out, I was an organizer with the SEIU, and I was looking for people's homes, and I would drive out into this place called Homestead, right? And I didn't know what I was gonna find there. And I'm driving around, there's all these fields, but that looks pretty beautiful actually, but that like sugar cane and all that stuff. And then you see like a Mexican flag and a Guatemalan flag. I'm like, oh man, that's the Raza I stopped. And I was like, I want to smell tortillas, Well, you miss that when you're with, tortillas and frijoles. But yeah, I mean, it shows who's the future, and again, they do know this. I mean, there's people that study all this, that some of the people that I had on the slides, they know all this, and the important thing is for us to know it, because we're always being, we're just played in the United States as if we don't exist. We're just on the background. If they do show anything about us, we're violent men, or the women are objects for white men. ¿Verdad? That's the way look at all the movies and shows. ¿Verdad? The majority of them. That's the way Chicanos Chicanas are shown to be. ¿Verdad? Or we're just, it's not a bad thing, but we're just the gardener or something. ¿Verdad? That's where we should be proud of being gardeners. Pero our people are all sorts of people, all sorts of jobs and everything, ¿verdad? They make movies about LA. And that's all they show Raza being, either a cholo, a woman that's gonna be with a white man, or a gardener. That's the only thing we are. But obviously, we're way more than that. We're 11, what was it? Our median age is 11 in all over the country. We are the future. That means it encompasses all sorts of people, all sorts of different.
Well, I think it was interesting how earlier you said like something about not being in competition. Like when you started this, I really like your approach, because you're coming from a place of acceptance. Like I wrote something down. I wrote like, we are not competing with each other. We are competing with U.S. imperialism. And I also wrote down like everybody's actions are important. Like whether you like the post online or whether you boycott it, to me it has the same repercussions as if you're boots on the ground. So like every action counts, and whether you just started now, whether you're in the middle of the struggle, whether you're a veteran like Moses in the struggle, like everybody matters, and we gotta build each other up so that we could build up our communities. I know I've seen things happen online where people start going at it with each other. We gotta put those petty things aside. Cause you follow what the right wing is doing, like they're armed.
Yeah.
And they're ready to shoot. So, we gotta stay on point.
All right, so we're gonna close the questions and comments section of the night, the discussion. Unless there's like one last question or anything, just one last one, and then we're gonna call. Okay, there's competing, there's two. Who wants to heck at the last? All right, who wants it?
Outside.
All right.
Well, I just want to echo what you said earlier, and I think about checking the sources of a lot of these people saying these really strange things. And like the pseudo left is actually the right. This fake left is actually the right. If you do any research about a lot of these people, you'll find out they're US military, you'll find out they went to cop schools, you'll find out that they wrote dissertations about how great it is that they have, they're breeding, like, they have like, kids who are half white, they're gonna be white in the future. I mean, I can give you examples on all these people. They talk about how they have like credibility of this, that, the other. You find out they have like right-wing family, they come from like Arena, they come from, all these kinds of stuff. And these are the leaders. This is like Dicho's thing. I'm not gonna name names, but this is like the leaders. All come from like right-wing backgrounds. And they're not just fake left, they're not just confused. They are the right.
All right, that's just one of the great at the line. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you so much, Ernesto. Any final thoughts or comments or anything?
Yeah, so next Thursday, we are having a demonstration here in downtown LA. We're gonna start at Placita Olvera. Sunday the fourth. Sorry, my brain's like everywhere. February, Sunday the fourth.
Yeah.
At Placita Olvera, Aztlan to Palestine, which is the same theme as this, that we've been doing this presentation. We did it in Oxnard and other places with that, so we're gonna do an actual demonstration. The reason we're doing it that day is because February 2nd, which is the Friday, I believe. February 2nd, 1848 was when the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed. That ending the US invasion of Mexico, but starting the occupation of Aztlan, of these lands, right? So to us as Chicanos, that's like Aztlan Flag Day, Chicano Day, etc. 1848, 100 years later, exactly 100 years later, 1948 is the Nakba to the Palestinian people, right? So that's, I mean, there's so many correlations between our struggles that, we decided that on that day, we want to march and give, again, like the brother said, we're not the fake left, we're not any of those, we're like Raza, we're people from the barrios, we're workers, we want to give our utmost showing of solidarity from the corazon to the people of Palestine. We want to tell them, we don't have money, we don't have all these funds of all these, white left organizations, but we have this, we have corazon, and we're going to show it to you on that day. We're going to march, we're going to take the streets, and on our land to show that we understand what you're going through, brother. We're probably not being shot rockets at, but there's policy that the United States makes that affects our communities. Their police attack our people. We have examples of Justice 8 that are locked up for their political beliefs and actions with the Raza. We have a common struggle. So we're going to take the streets on that day, ¿verdad? 11 a.m. at Placita Olvera on Sunday. Please join us, ¿verdad? We would love it if it would somehow make it, to the ears of our Palestinian sisters and brothers in Palestine, in Gaza or the West Bank or anywhere in Palestine. And so they can see, that the people that they invited over was it like 44 years ago, have been organized, and I meant because the 1980, not the wall. Those people that they invited over still remember them and still are organizing and still are showing us solidarity with them from Aztlan to Palestine.
Thank you so much. Feel free to make calls, feel free to hang out with Ernesto, please support the store. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night. And if you guys can help stack the chairs, that'd be amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you guys so much. Arte.